December 20, 1943, 27,000 feet above Bremen, Germany. A crippled B-17 bomber limps through frozen sky, trailing smoke and blood. 10 young Americans inside, half of them wounded, all of them waiting to die. Then a Messerschmitt Bf 109 pulls alongside, close enough to see the pilot's face, close enough to kill them all with a single burst. The German pilot doesn't fire. Instead, he escorts the dying bomber to safety, salutes, disappears back into German airspace. 10 men survived that day because of that choice. Then both pilots went home and never spoke of it again. For 46 years, Lieutenant Charlie Brown carried one question: why? Why did that German pilot spare them when every regulation, every order, every instinct of war said to destroy them? In 1989, Charlie began searching. 4 years of dead ends, hundreds of letters sent across Germany, dozens of false leads from men claiming to be the pilot. Then in 1990, a letter arrived from Vancouver, Canada. 4 words in the opening line: "I was him." This is the story of how 2 warriors from opposite sides of history's bloodiest war spent 5 decades haunted by a single moment of mercy, and then spent their final years as brothers. December 20, 1943, 15:47 hours. Charlie Brown coaxes his B-17F Ye Olde pub across the English Channel. Half the tail section is gone. The number 2 engine trails black smoke. Hydraulic fluid coats the fuselage in frozen streaks. Blood pools on the floor behind the pilot's seat. They land at RAF seething at 16:03 hours. Emergency crews stare in disbelief. The aircraft has over 200 holes. The tail gunner, Staff Sergeant Hugh Eckingrode, is unconscious from lack of oxygen. The ball turret gunner suffered wounds to both legs. The navigator took shrapnel to his shoulder. But they're alive, all 10 of them. Charlie's commanding officer, Colonel Arnold, meets him in the debriefing room. Charlie tells the story exactly as it happened: the German fighter pulling alongside, the escort to safety, the salute. Arnold's face goes white. He leans forward. "Lieutenant Brown, you will never speak of this incident again. Not to your crew, not to other pilots, not in letters home. Do you understand?" Charlie doesn't understand. "Sir, that pilot was probably a deserter or a defector. If we publicize this, the Luftwaffe will execute him, if they haven't already." Arnold's voice drops. "You want that on your conscience. Say nothing. That's an order." Charlie complies. That night, he writes in his personal log, the only place he allows himself to remember, "A German pilot spared us today. I don't know why, I don't know who. I only know I owe my life to an enemy whose face I can still see when I close my eyes." The official mission report lists the incident as fighter encounter, no engagement. Nothing about the escort. Nothing about mercy. The truth disappears into classified silence. Charlie finishes his tour. 29 combat missions. Returns stateside in April 1944. Marries his sweetheart, Jackie, in Seattle. They have 2 daughters. Charlie stays in the Air Force, becomes a diplomat, serves in postings across Europe during the Cold War. From the outside, it's a successful life. Distinguished career, loving family, comfortable retirement in Miami by 1972. But the nightmares never stop. His daughter Dawn later recalls, "Dad would wake up screaming about a German pilot. We'd ask him what happened, and he'd just shake his head. Something during the war, nothing you need to worry about." The specific image that returns, night after night, the Messerschmitt pulling alongside, so close, Charlie could see the pilot's face. The moment when death should have come, but didn't. The salute. The question that became a wound that never healed. Why? Meanwhile, 5,000 miles away, Oberleutnant Franz Stigler faces his own silence. On December 21, 1943, the day after the encounter, Franz returns to his base at Jever, Germany. His commanding officer, Oberstleutnant Gustav Rodel, asks about his mission. Franz reports engine trouble, says he lost the bomber in clouds. Rodel doesn't believe him. Franz can see it in his eyes, but says nothing. They both understand. If Franz admits what he did, it's a court-martial, probably execution. Failure to destroy an enemy bomber within range is dereliction of duty. The Luftwaffe doesn't forgive mercy. Franz continues flying until war's end, shoots down 28 Allied aircraft total, survives when most of his squadron doesn't. When Germany collapses in May 1945, Franz knows what happens to Luftwaffe pilots in the Soviet zone. He flees west, eventually immigrates to Canada in 1953, settles in Vancouver, opens a small machine shop, marries, has 4 children. He tells no one about the American bomber. not his wife, not his children. The risk has passed, but the habit of silence remains. Who would understand? Who would believe that a German fighter pilot, labeled a Nazi by everyone who learns his service history, chose humanity over orders? What the encounter changed in Franz, he could never see enemies as abstractions again. Every Allied bomber after December 20, 1943, contained faces, names, families waiting. The B-17 he spared haunted him differently than the planes he destroyed. Those were war. That was choice. Both men carried the memory in silence for decades. An encounter that lasted 4 minutes had marked them both permanently, one with gratitude mixed with guilt, the other with pride mixed with the loneliness of knowing no one would understand what that moment cost him. Miami, Florida. Charlie Brown is 65 years old, retired, sitting in a veterans reunion with other B-17 pilots. Someone mentions an article about unusual war stories. A historian attending the reunion, Steve Blake, turns to Charlie. "You flew 29 missions. Anything unusual ever happened to you?" Charlie has answered this question 100 times with practiced deflection, but he's 65 now. Colonel Arnold died 15 years ago. The war ended 46 years ago. The classified silence seems absurd after so much time. So Charlie tells the story. The crippled B-17, the Messerschmitt that appeared, the escort instead of the kill, the salute.
The room goes silent. Blake stares at him. That's incredible. Have you ever tried to find him?" "Find who?" "The German pilot. He could still be alive." The thought has never occurred to Charlie. For 43 years, the incident existed as memory, not as a person who might still exist somewhere in the world. But now, spoken aloud to witnesses who react with awe instead of orders to stay silent, the question transforms. Why did he spare us? Becomes, who was he, and can I find him? Charlie makes his decision that night. I need to know. Before I die, I need to know why. Charlie is 68 years old. He begins with official channels. The U.S. Air Force Historical Research Agency at Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama. They have records of Luftwaffe units stationed near Bremen in December 1943. Charlie learns there were 3 fighter squadrons in the area, JJ-11, JJ-26, and JJ-27. He writes letters to German military archives, requests pilot rosters. The responses are frustrating. Records destroyed in bombing raids, archives scattered across divided Germany, some in the West, some behind the Iron Curtain. The German Democratic Republic doesn't respond to American inquiries about Wehrmacht personnel. It's seen as rehabilitation of Nazism. Months pass, then a year, then 2 years. Charlie is now 70. His nightmares haven't stopped. The question has become obsession. His wife Jackie worries. "Charlie, maybe he's dead. Maybe you'll never find him. You have to let this go." But Charlie can't. That face, that salute, the debt unpaid. In 1989, Charlie adopts a new strategy. He writes a detailed account of the encounter. The date, the location, the specific details only the German pilot would know. The missing tail section, the escort to the coast, the salute before breaking away. He submits it to a newsletter distributed to former Luftwaffe pilots, Jägerblatt, Fighter Pilot Journal. The account includes everything. December 20th, 1943. B-17F, serial number 4231367. Bremen raid. Messerschmitt Bf 109. Pilot had blonde hair visible through the canopy. He flew formation with us for several minutes, escorted us to the coast, saluted, then returned east. Charlie adds, "I am 71 years old. This pilot may be dead, but if by chance he survived the war, or if anyone knows who he was, I need to know. I need to thank him. He gave me 47 years of life I wouldn't have had." He waits. Weeks pass. Charlie knows the odds. The German pilot could be anywhere, could be dead, probably is dead. Most fighter pilots didn't survive. Meanwhile, 2,000 miles north in Vancouver, Franz Stigler is 75 years old. He attends occasional veterans gatherings, though he's uncomfortable with the label veteran. To many Canadians, German veteran means Nazi, regardless of the complexity. Franz doesn't read Jägerblatt regularly, but in January 1990, a friend sends him a copy, mentions there's an interesting story from an American pilot. Franz opens to the article almost casually. Then he sees the date, December 20th, 1943. The location, Bremen. The description, B-17 with tail damage, Messerschmitt escort. Franz's hands shake. For 47 years, he's carried that memory in private silence. The American bomber he couldn't destroy. The moment he chose his commanding officer's words, "If you shoot parachutists, I'll shoot you," over his duty. The parallel he drew. Helpless parachutists, helpless bomber crew. both outside combat, both murder, not war. The realization hits Franz like a physical force. He's looking for me. After all these years, he's looking for me. Franz tells his wife Haya that night. It's the first time he's mentioned the incident in 47 years. She stares at him. "You never told me this." "I couldn't. It was complicated." "Are you going to respond?" Franz doesn't answer immediately. To respond means revealing himself, means confirming he was the pilot who violated orders. But the man searching is 71. Franz is 75. Time is running out for both of them. Franz writes the letter that night. January 18th, 1990. Charlie Brown retrieves his mail in Miami. Among the bills and advertisements, an envelope from Canada. Return address, F. Stigler, Vancouver, BC. Charlie opens it standing at his mailbox. The letter begins, "I was the one." Charlie's vision blurs. He reads standing there, trembling, as the 47-year question finally gets its answer. Franz's letter explains everything. He'd shot down 2 bombers that morning, needed 1 more for the Knight's Cross, the highest honor a fighter pilot could achieve. He was hunting his 3rd kill when he spotted the crippled B-17. He moved in for the attack, Franz writes. "Then I saw the damage. I saw your tail gunner slumped over. I saw the wounded through the open fuselage. I got close enough to see your face." Franz describes what Charlie never knew, the internal struggle, the orders versus the code his commanding officer Gustav Rodel had drilled into him. "We are fighter pilots. We fight other pilots in combat, but we don't murder helpless men." Rodel's exact words, which Franz remembers decades later, were, "If I ever see or hear of you shooting at a man in a parachute, I will shoot you myself." Franz made a comparison in that moment. "Your crew was like parachutists, helpless, outside combat. If I shot you down, it wouldn't be combat, it would be murder." So Franz did something else. He positioned his fighter alongside Charlie's bomber, close enough that German flak batteries would think the B-17 was a captured friendly aircraft being escorted home. He flew formation to the coast. Then at the North Sea, he saluted and broke away. "I returned to base and lied," Franz writes. "My commander didn't believe me, but he said nothing. He understood." The letter continues. "I never forgot your face. For 47 years I wondered if you made it home. I wondered if I did the right thing. Some would call me a traitor. Some would say I failed my duty. But I think of Gustav Rodel's words. I think of what kind of man I wanted to be. I chose to be the kind of man who doesn't murder helpless men."
Charlie reads the letter 3 times, calls Franz that night. The phone conversation lasts 2 hours. They verify details, the missing tail section, the number 2 engine fire, the altitude, the cloud cover. Everything matches. After 47 years of nightmares, Charlie finally understands why. "You saved 10 lives that day," Charlie says, voice breaking. 10 men went home because you chose mercy over orders. My daughters exist because of you, my grandchildren. All of us. We're here because of what you did." Franz responds quietly. "And I've lived 47 years knowing I made the right choice. Thank you for searching. Thank you for letting me know it mattered." The question that had haunted Charlie for nearly 5 decades is finally answered. And Franz receives something he never expected. Confirmation that his choice, his violation of orders, his career-ending decision, saved not just 10 men, but generations. June 1990. 6 months after first contact, Charlie and Franz arranged to meet in person. The location? Seattle, Washington. Neutral ground between Miami and Vancouver. Camera crews document it. The story has spread through veteran networks, and CBS News wants to film the reunion. Franz arrives first. He's 75, tall, white-haired, ramrod straight despite his age. Charlie arrives 30 minutes later. He's 69, shorter, graying, walking with the slight stiffness of age. They see each other across the hotel lobby. Both men stop. 47 years collapse into a single moment. They meet in the middle, embrace. Charlie later describes it. "I felt like I was hugging my brother, someone I'd known my entire life but had never met." Franz whispers in English, accent still thick after 37 years in Canada. "I love you, my friend. I love you." They spend the day together. Charlie introduces Franz to other survivors from his crew. 3 others are still alive. Hugh Eckenrode, the tail gunner, who was unconscious when they landed. Alex Yelesenko, the ball turret gunner who took leg wounds. Sam Blackford, the top turret gunner. Each survivor shakes Franz's hand. Thanks him. Franz weeps openly. "I didn't know if any of you made it. I've wondered for 47 years." The families meet.
Charlie's daughters, now adults with children of their own. Franz's 4 children. The realization hits everyone simultaneously. These families exist because one man chose mercy in a moment when war demanded killing. Charlie's daughter Dawn later says, "I looked at Franz's grandchildren and thought, our families are connected by a decision made in 4 minutes. My grandfather would have killed my children's grandfather, except he didn't. And because he didn't, all of us are here because of what he did." The healing that follows transforms both men. Charlie's nightmares stop. For 47 years, the memory haunted him with unanswered questions. Now it becomes a source of peace. Franz receives validation for the choice that cost him the night cross and could have cost him his life. Franz tells Charlie about the men he did shoot down. Bombers that exploded. Pilots who died. The weight of those kills. But you I could save. That's the one thing from the war I can be proud of. For the next 18 years, Charlie Brown and Franz Stigler are inseparable. They speak weekly by phone, visit each other multiple times per year, travel together to air shows and veteran gatherings. At the Air Force Museum in Dayton, Ohio, they stand together in front of a restored B-17 and a Messerschmitt Bf 109. Enemies become brothers in the shadow of the machines that once defined them. In 1991, Charlie gives Franz a gift, a model of a B-17 and a Messerschmitt flying side by side. The inscription reads, "In perpetual friendship. C. Brown to F. Stigler." Their families become close. Charlie's wife Jackie and Franz's wife Hia forge their own friendship. The children, Charlie's 2 daughters and Franz's 4 children, stay in contact. Christmas cards cross the border annually. But the friendship brings backlash.
Franz receives phone calls from Germany. Other Luftwaffe veterans call him a traitor. "You violated orders. You let an enemy bomber escape. You should have been shot." Franz's response is always the same. They would never understand. They weren't there. They didn't see those men's faces. In Canada, some neighbors discover Franz's past, label him a Nazi, despite his record of defying orders to show mercy. The complexity doesn't matter to those who reduce history to simple labels. Charlie faces similar criticism from a few American veterans. "You're friends with a Nazi? A Luftwaffe pilot?" The word Luftwaffe carries weight, implies complicity with atrocities, ignores individual choices. Charlie's response? "He's not a Nazi. He's the man who saved my life when he could have killed me. Labels from a war that ended 50 years ago don't matter. What matters is what he chose to do in that moment." What actually matters to both men? They found each other. They answered the questions that haunted them. They lived long enough to transform an act of mercy from a private secret into a shared understanding. Their friendship lasts 18 years. From 1990 to 2008, Charlie and Franz speak weekly, visit often, tell their story to schools, veteran groups, and documentaries. They become inseparable, 2 men who once represented opposite sides of history's bloodiest conflict, now representing something else: humanity's capacity to transcend war. March 24, 2008. Franz Stigler dies in Vancouver. He is 92 years old, pneumonia. His family surrounds him. Among his last words, "Tell Charlie I waited as long as I could." Charlie receives the call in Miami. He's 86. He attends the funeral in Vancouver, delivers a eulogy. "Franz gave me my life twice. Once in 1943 when he spared my bomber, and again in 1990 when he answered my search and gave meaning to the 47 years of questions I carried." 8 months later, November 24, 2008, Charlie Brown dies in Miami. He's 87. Heart failure. His family surrounds him. His last words include Franz's name. They're buried 2,000 miles apart. Franz in Vancouver, Charlie in Miami. Separated by distance, but inseparable in history. The mathematics of their lives. 4 minutes together in combat. 47 years carrying the memory separately. 18 years together as brothers. 8 months between their deaths. The legacy extends beyond their lifetimes. In 2012, Adam Makos publishes their story in a book titled A Higher Call, an incredible true story of combat and chivalry in the war-torn skies of World War II. It becomes a New York Times bestseller. Millions of readers discover Charlie and Franz. Schools teach their story as an example of moral courage. But the real legacy isn't the book. It's what their story teaches, that humanity can prevail even in the machinery of war, that seeing humans beyond uniforms, beyond flags and orders and national identities is always possible, that mercy has consequences measured in generations. 10 men survived December 20th, 1943, because Franz Stigler chose disobedience over obedience, mercy over murder. Those 10 men returned home, had families, lived lives. Their children had children. By 2008, Franz's single choice in 4 minutes had resulted in hundreds of people who wouldn't exist if he'd followed orders. And 2 men who should have killed each other instead spent their final years as brothers, proving that the identities war forces on us, enemy, ally, killer, target, are never as permanent as our capacity to choose who we become. 4 minutes of mercy, 47 years of silence, 18 years of brotherhood, 8 months between deaths. That's not just a war story. That's a story about what it means to be human.